We live in a world where oversharing is just one apost away. But here's the truth. Everybody doesn't need to know everything about you. The wrong people with the right information can use it against you. So if you want more peace, more privacy, and fewer problems, you need to guard these 5 things like your life depends on it, because sometimes it actually does. There's something about insecurities that makes them feel like tiny cracks in the wall. They might look small, but if the wrong person knows exactly where they are, all it takes is the right pressure and crack. Suddenly that wall doesn't feel safe anymore. I'm not saying you should walk through life pretending to be bulletproof. I'm saying you don't need to hand out the blueprint of your weaknesses to people who haven't earned the right to hold them. Here's the thing. Most of us want connection. We want people to know us, to understand us, maybe even relate to us. But there's a fine line between being open and being exposed. Being open means you choose what parts of you to share based on trust and mutual respect. Being exposed is when you hand over your most vulnerable pieces to people who might not have the maturity, the empathy, or even the desire to protect them. That's when things get dangerous. Think about the last time someone knew something personal about you and later used it to win an argument, get the upper hand, or make you feel small. You didn't feel understood in that moment. You felt betrayed. And here's why: when you give someone your insecurities without knowing their character, you're giving them a loaded weapon and hoping they never point it at you. That's not trust. That's gambling. And the odds? Not great. Some people might say, but I like being vulnerable. I like being honest about my struggles. And I get that. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's in the right setting. Vulnerability in the wrong setting doesn't build connection. It builds ammunition for someone else's gain. Imagine telling a coworker in a moment of frustration that you feel like you're not smart enough for your job. It might feel like a moment of bonding, but fast forward 6 months when there's a promotion on the table. That same coworker could be casually mentioning to your boss how you struggle with confidence just to tilt the scales in their favor. This doesn't mean you can't talk about your insecurities at all. It means you talk about them intentionally. You choose people who've proven over time that they can be trusted with your unfiltered truth, people who see you as more than your flaws. And here's the test. If you share something deeply personal and they don't rush to fix it, exploit it, or gossip about it, you've probably found safe ground. If they do any of those things, you've learned a lesson. And you keep that door closed next time you see every insecurity you have as a part of your story, but it's not for every audience, not every follower on social media, not every friendly face at work, not even every family member has earned that backstage pass. You decide who sits in the front row of your life and who watches from the balcony. And there's another reason to guard these parts of you. Insecurities aren't permanent. What you feel today as a weakness might be your greatest strength in 5 years. But if you let the wrong person define you, buy it now, they'll keep you trapped in a version of yourself you've already outgrown. You might be moving forward, but in their mind, you're still back there, stuck in that old limitation. And the more they remind you of it, the harder it is to shake free. It's like handing over a photograph from the worst day of your life. You might have moved on, healed, and rebuilt, but they've still got that photo and they can pull it out anytime to remind you where you fell. If they care about you, they'll never use it. If they don't, they'll frame it. Protecting your insecurities doesn't make you fake. It makes you wise, because there's a difference between hiding who you are and honoring who you are. Honoring who you are means you don't throw the most fragile parts of yourself into the hands of people who haven't shown they can carry them. Your insecurities are not weaknesses to be ashamed of. They're simply places you're still growing. And growth needs a safe environment, not a public stage. So before you share that fear, that self-doubt, that quiet struggle, ask yourself one question: has this person earned the right to hear this part of me? Because if the answer is no, the silence you keep might just be the protection you need. Money has a strange way of changing how people see you. Sometimes it's not even about the amount. It's about what people think that amount means. The moment you start sharing the details of your financial life, you hand over a filter through which they'll see everything you do. If they think you have more than they do, suddenly your success isn't just success. It's privilege, luck, or an opportunity they think they should have had. If they think you have less, then every decision you make might be judged as irresponsible, short-sighted, or a sign you're not doing enough. The truth is, money conversations aren't always bad. In the right context, with the right people, they can be educational, helpful, and even motivating. But when the wrong ears hear your exact numbers, your salary, your savings, your debts, it can shift the dynamic in ways you might not even notice at first. A friend might start keeping score, comparing their wins to yours. A family member might feel entitled to a share of your good fortune. Someone you thought was rooting for you might quietly resent you. And before you know it, your relationships aren't built on trust anymore. They're balanced on a spreadsheet. The tricky part is people are rarely honest about how money affects them emotionally. They won't tell you outright that knowing your income makes them feel competitive or insecure. They'll just start acting differently. Maybe they stop inviting you to certain things because they assume you wouldn't want to go. Maybe they start dropping hints about needing help or expecting you to pay more often. Or maybe they start questioning how you spend your money, even when it has nothing to do with them. And if you're on the other side, if your finances aren't in the place you want them to be, sharing too much can put you in a position you didn't ask for. People might underestimate you, think less of your capabilities, or make decisions for you instead of with you because they've already decided you can't afford to contribute. It can make you feel smaller, like your worth is being calculated in dollars instead of character. When you keep your financial details private, you're not being secretive. You're protecting the balance in your relationships. You're making sure that your interactions with people are based on shared values, not shared bank statements. You're removing one of the most common sources of misunderstanding before it even has a chance to show up. Now, some will argue that being open about money helps normalize the conversation, and that's true in the right setting. Talking about general financial habits, lessons learned, or money management strategies can be empowering for everyone involved. But talking about specific numbers is different. Numbers stick. People remember them. They measure you by them. And once those numbers are out there, you can't take them back. Even with people you trust, it's wise to share financial details only when there's a real reason to, when it's necessary for a decision, a collaboration, or a shared responsibility. Otherwise, you're just giving people a ruler they can use to measure you against themselves, and measurements have a way of turning into judgments. I've seen friendships strain because one person got a raise and the other didn't. I've seen families fracture over inheritances and debts that were discussed too soon and with too many people. And I've seen people lose respect, not because they changed, but because the way others saw them changed after a single conversation about money. At the end of the day, your finances are part of your personal life, and personal doesn't have to mean public. You don't owe anyone an itemized list of your income, your savings, or your spending habits. You don't have to defend why you bought something or explain why you didn't. The fewer people know about your exact financial situation, the fewer expectations, assumptions, and resentments you'll have to navigate. And here's the thing, when you take the focus off the numbers, you make more room for people to see you for who you are, not for what you have or don't have. So remember this, your worth is not your net worth. And the less you let people define you by it, the more freedom you'll have to live on your own terms. There's something about a dream in its early stages that makes it fragile. It's like a seed. You can't just toss it anywhere and expect it to grow. It needs the right soil, the right conditions, and the right amount of protection before it can stand on its own. But too often we start talking about that dream before it's ready. We share it with people who don't understand it, can't see it, or worse, don't want it to happen. And suddenly that little spark of excitement starts to feel smaller. It's not always because people are mean-spirited. Sometimes they genuinely think they're helping. You tell them you want to start a business and they immediately point out every statistic about how most businesses fail. You say you want to write a book and they start telling you how competitive the publishing industry is. You mention that you're thinking of moving to a new city and they remind you about the cost of living, the dangers, the challenges. They might mean well, but what they're really doing is handing your dream back to you with a little more doubt attached to it than it had before. The problem is Dreams are most vulnerable in the beginning before they have proof to back them up. And when you invite too many opinions into that space, it's like letting someone step on the soil where you just planted the seed. Even if they don't destroy it completely, they can slow its growth. They can make you question whether it's worth the effort, whether you're even capable of making it happen. Sometimes it's not even the doubt they give you. It's the ownership they try to take. You tell someone your idea and now it's theirs too. They start giving you directions, suggestions, even deadlines, as if your dream has become a group project. Suddenly, you're not building it your way anymore. You're building it with their voices in your head, pulling it in a direction you never intended. And then there's the sabotage, the subtle kind. You mention your plan to someone who feels threatened by it, and instead of cheering you on, they quietly plant obstacles in your path. Maybe they talk you out of taking a step forward. Maybe they downplay your progress. Or maybe they just disappear when you could have used their support the most. The truth is, not everyone is rooting for you, even if they smile when you talk about your goals. That's why silence is such a powerful tool. Not because you're being secretive, but because you're being strategic. When you keep your dreams close until they've taken root, you give them a fighting chance to grow strong enough to withstand the criticism, the doubt, and the noise. And when you finally do share them, you're not looking for validation. You're just letting people in on something that's already becoming real. There's a certain confidence that comes from working quietly. You're not performing for an audience. You're focused on the work itself. And that work is what will speak for you in the end. Because here's the truth. Once your dream starts producing results, those results will silence a lot of the people who would have talked you out of it in the beginning. It's hard to argue with something that's already in motion, already succeeding, already standing on its own. Some of the most successful people you'll ever meet didn't broadcast their plans. They moved quietly, let their progress accumulate in the background, and only revealed what they were doing when it was undeniable. They weren't hiding, they were protecting. And they understood that a dream isn't something you throw to the crowd for approval. It's something you build in the shadows until the light hits it naturally. When you hold back from oversharing, you give yourself the space to make mistakes without the pressure of an audience. You can pivot, adjust, and learn without feeling like you're failing in public. And that privacy can be the difference between a dream that thrives and a dream that gets abandoned halfway. So if you've got something you're building, an idea, a plan, don't rush to put it in someone else's hands. Not everyone needs to know the details. Not everyone has earned the right to see the blueprint. Sometimes the best way to protect a dream is to let it grow in silence until it's too strong to be uprooted. There's a certain kind of trust that comes with someone telling you a secret. It's not just information. They're handing you a piece of themselves, something they've decided not to give to the rest of the world. And the moment you accept that you're making an unspoken promise, I will protect this. But too many people forget that promise the second they feel the pull of a good story or the thrill of being the one with inside information. The truth is, the way you treat someone else's secret says more about you than it does about them. Because here's the reality. If someone trusted you enough to share something private, they're not just asking you to keep quiet about facts. They're asking you to keep safe the emotions, the risks, and the vulnerability that came with telling you in the first place. Breaking that trust doesn't just expose their information, it exposes your character. We live in a world where people overshare without even thinking about it. A private conversation becomes a casual text to a friend. That text becomes a side note in another conversation. And before you know it, something deeply personal has made its way through a chain of people it was never meant to reach. It's like dropping a glass. It's quick, it's careless, and you can never put it back the way it was. And here's the part a lot of people miss. You don't have to tell the whole story to break trust. Even dropping hints, harmless details, or leading comments can make the same kind of damage. You might think you're being vague, but all it takes is one person connecting the dots and suddenly the secret is out. Sometimes people justify it to themselves. I only told one person. They're not going to tell anyone else. It's not like I mentioned names, but when you strip away the excuses, the result is still the same. You've taken something that wasn't yours to share and you've put it out in the open. The truth is, not sharing someone's secret is about discipline. It's about resisting the urge to be interesting or to feel important because you know something other people don't. It's about valuing the relationship more than the temporary rush of being the one who knows. And here's something I've learned. If you're willing to share someone else's private information, people notice. They might not call you out on it, but they're paying attention. If you talk about other people's business to them, they'll assume you'll talk about their business to others. And slowly, without you even realizing it, the trust people have in you starts to shrink. On the flip side, when you consistently keep other people's confidences, you build a reputation that's worth more than almost anything else. People feel safer around you. They open up more. They invite you into parts of their lives they wouldn't share with just anyone. And that kind of trust doesn't just strengthen relationships. It makes you the kind of person others want to have in their corner. It's also worth remembering that sometimes a secret isn't just personal, it's protective. It could be about someone's safety, their career, their family, or their mental health. Sharing it could cause real damage that you can't undo. What might seem like a small slip to you could be a life-altering problem for them. That's why it's so important to treat every piece of personal information as if it matters, because to the person who shared it, it does. And even if you think it's harmless, it's not your call to make. If you didn't create it, if it's not your story, it's not your right to tell it. So the next time someone trusts you with something private, think about what it took for them to share it with you. Think about how you'd feel if the roles were reversed. And think about whether the short-term satisfaction of telling someone else is worth the long-term damage of losing their trust forever. Because the moment you share what wasn't yours to share, you can't take it back. And the person who trusted you may never look at you the same way again. One of the most powerful advantages you can have in life is letting people see your results before they ever see your plan. The moment you start telling everyone your next move, you open the door for opinions, expectations, and sometimes even resistance that you didn't ask for. And here's the thing. Once you put it out there, you can't pull it back. You've given people a map, and now they can watch your every step, question your pace, and judge you before you even reach the destination. There's something to be said for moving quietly, not because you're afraid, but because you understand the value of focus. When you keep your plans to yourself, you get to work without the pressure of an audience. You're not performing. You're not defending every decision. You're not explaining why you're taking this path instead of that one. You're just doing the work. And when the work is done, it speaks for itself in a way words never could. The problem with announcing your plans too early is that people will start reacting before you've even had a chance to act. Some will cheer you on, sure, but others will doubt you, criticize you, or try to talk you out of it altogether. They'll tell you all the reasons it won't work, all the obstacles you might face, all the ways they think you should do it differently. And even if you don't mean to, you'll carry some of those voices with you while you're working. That's mental space you could have used for problem solving and creativity, now taken up by other people's fears and limitations. There's also the risk of sabotage, and it doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it's subtle. Someone quietly competing with you, rushing to beat you to an idea, or planting seeds of doubt so you slow down. The less people know about your next move, the fewer opportunities they have to interfere with it. Another thing to remember is that plans change. What you thought was the next step today might not be the right step tomorrow. If you've already told everyone, now you have to deal with the questions, the confusion, I thought you were going to conversations. But if you've kept it to yourself, you can pivot without having to justify yourself to anyone. That kind of flexibility is worth protecting. There's a quote that says, "Don't tell people your plans, show them your results." And it's not about being secretive for the sake of mystery. It's about understanding that progress is often safest when it's quiet. The more time you spend explaining yourself, the less time you have to actually execute. Think about it like planting a garden. You wouldn't dig up the seeds every week to show your neighbors how they're doing. You'd keep them in the soil, let them get the sunlight, and water they need, and trust the process until you see something sprout. That's how you treat your next move. Nurture it in private until it's strong enough to handle the outside world. And when the results do come, it's a different kind of satisfaction. You don't have to convince anyone it's real. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to explain how you got there unless you want to. People will see it and it will speak for itself. Some of the most impactful achievements are the ones nobody saw coming, not because they were impossible, but because they were built quietly, without distraction, without unnecessary opinions, and without the need for early validation. That's how you protect momentum, by not giving it away too soon. So the next time you feel the urge to tell everyone what you're about to do, pause. Ask yourself if sharing it will make it stronger or if it will make it more vulnerable. If it's the latter, keep it to yourself and let your actions do the talking, because the loudest way to announce your next move is to let them see it when it's already done. We live in a time where it feels natural to put everything out there, our thoughts, our struggles, our plans, our wins. But the truth is, not everything is meant for public consumption. Some things are too valuable, too personal, too fragile to hand over to just anyone. Your